Hey everybody, welcome to Houdini Hangout. We're at the end of November. Just had our Thanksgiving holidays here in the United States and had a nice long weekend to kind of rest and recuperate a little bit. Ready to dive back into some Houdini fun. Hope you're all doing well. Hope everybody is having a good week and got some fun stuff that we're going to play around with tonight. Hey, Matul, welcome. Hello. Welcome to the stream this evening. So we're going to, hey, Mirko, welcome. Yo. So tonight we are going to do some... Hey, John, welcome to the stream. Hello. John is a friend from the UK, and it's late for you there. You're up late. Hope you're doing well over there on the other side of the pond. Hey, Natch, welcome. John does a lot of really cool tech stuff with the education industry over in the UK there. So he is a friend of Side Effects. Yeah, very late. Good to see you. Yes, for sure. Well, I can't see you, but I see that you're talking, but you can see me. Yeah. Anyways. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about kind of driving a couple different types of simulation together. We have, hey, Anan, welcome. Hello. So I think what we're going to do tonight is take kind of a Pyro sim and use that to push around some threads that we have set up. I had asked for a suggestion from, this was a suggestion that I had seen in the Discord server, and I'll bring that up and kind of show you a little bit of what it is, and we'll kind of play around with it. Oh, hello. Who is? I can't. That's weird. It's that one's very dark for me. It says Joel D. Well, hey, in my chat it looks a little different there, but I don't know what's going on there. It's weird. Hello, welcome. Cool, Mirko. Yeah, great. Glad. It should be fun. Hopefully it'll be good. Always nice to maybe see how somebody else does something, and then I'm be curious to hear if you have any pointers or tips too. Let's see here. I'm just making a new file while I'm talking. This idea came, like I said, came from the suggestion part of the Discord server. So if you're ever interested in giving some suggestions, you can go on the Discord server. Link is there in the chat. Hopefully it links in the chat. Should at least give you the URL there that you can post in. It's just houdinihangout.com. If I can type here, just naming my file. Cool. All right. So let's take a look at what I was talking about here. It was in the topic suggestions. It was this one here, and let's see here. So somebody had suggested that we look at some of the kind of MoGraphy stuff that Insidium has done in some of their trailers, and I thought that was kind of a cool idea. Let's see, where is the effect that I was thinking about? There it is. All right. So, that was a big jump. All right, let me switch over here. Boom. That should be right. You should be able to see it. There we go. Cool. So the thing that I was looking at doing was actually this. Oh, wow. It's so fast. It is so fast. There's so many cool things in here. We could talk about a bunch of these different things, right? And I'm going to use this for some inspiration. But let's see. I'm going to slow this down a little bit so that we can actually see it a little bit better here. So this is the effect that I think I'm going to play around with. I kind of want it to be a little bit more dynamic than that. It feels a little bit, I don't really like how it's so stationary in the middle here. So the effect that I did was a little bit different than this, but we'll play around with it and kind of see where we can get with it. So as usual, I like to kind of always just remind everybody that if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. Happy to, get any criticisms, comments, questions, thoughts, whatever you might have, put them in there and we'll kind of address them as we go. If you're streaming on, I'm streaming on YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn. You can chat on Discord if you want to while you're watching, because that's should be even quicker to get to me. But if you're on any of those at all, please feel free to switch over if you want to watch it somewhere else. If you found me through one thing, you can go to the other. But yeah, this is obviously a place to ask questions and chat and whatever you want, you might be feeling like is needing to be explained a little bit better. I'm always happy to do that. So yeah, I guess that's about it. I left that open on the window there. So yeah, I guess let's dive in and start doing some Houdini. So the first thing that I'm going to do here with this setup is create a little Pyro simulation. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to open up the document that I had before, because I was playing around with this a little bit just in case. Just in case I get a little goofed up here. Let me just see. Just looking. There it is. I was actually planning on doing this a couple weeks ago when I was talking about Houdini 20 stuff, because I thought people would be like, oh, I'll have a few questions and blah, blah, blah. But it was actually like a ton of questions, and we just basically talked about Houdini 20 the whole time, which was cool because I think it was the day that it had come out. So that was kind of neat to have everybody around and chatting about that. And everybody was really interested. So I'm just going to keep this kind of open so I can have it as a little reference for myself. So I'm just going to let this open up. My poor old computer seems to be starting to show its age. Starting to get a little slow in its relatively old age. It's not that old, but there we go. Jeez, all right. I'll just move this over so you don't have to look at it, but I'll have it with me in case I need any reference here. I think. Maybe not. That's funny. Looks like I saved an empty file. That's funny. Huh. Weird. Oh, maybe because I was starting this and I was going to. Huh. Well, anyways, it's all right. I pretty much remember what I was doing. All right. So, it's just been a few weeks since I was playing around with this. All right, so let's first set up the Pyro simulation. So we're going to do a geo node. We'll drop this down, and let's just call this Pyro sim. Actually, we'll do... And sometimes I like to put the title in the front just so that, these are sim nodes or whatever. So like if you have like a bigger... Oh, that's cool. Just my next door neighbor's car alarm's going off. That's cool. I like to put these kind of at the beginning sometimes, just because if you go to like merge something in, sometimes it's nice to have like, hey, these are all my like geometry setups. These are my sim setups. Maybe these are my output render like cleanup setups. I don't know, whatever. I like to do that, but just a little food for thought. All right, so let's grab a Pyro burst source, If you're not familiar with these are just a way to get a little animation, like a pyro explosion type animation set. You can see it's really quick. It's nothing like insane. It's just a shape that kind of bursts out. And since that image was kind of on this flat plane, I think I want to try to get this burst source to be a little bit more flat and not so like elevated here. It's also really flat on the bottom, so I don't think I really want that. So let's play around with some of this stuff. You can see here we have a spread angle that we can do, and we can also set what kind of setup we want here. So I actually think, no, not shockwave, but a blast ring. No. Yeah, I think what we're going to do is just do an explosion. And we'll just change the angle of this here. And we can just get a bit more of a symmetrical, aspect to this. We could also, well, actually what I think I had originally done this with before was the shockwave animation. Now that I'm kind of thinking about it, I'm like, that might be fine. We can play with this obviously, but, yeah, we can obviously play around with this a little bit, but this one has the option to have a spread angle as well. So that's kind of nice. And cool. So if this is 80 and 20, that should give us a nice little shape here. So yeah, maybe we can do that. So this is going to be like a burst outwards here. So this is a little bit different. Let's give this a shot. So what we should be getting here is a few different attributes on our pyro burst source. Let's maybe add some density here. So we're just going to take the point separation down a little bit, just so we have a little bit better density of points here, since it's going to kind of spread out a bit. There we go. And let me just see, we should have velocity on this. So there's our velocities kind of spreading outwards, and we can adjust how long this animation goes for. We could change the duration to be like, 24 frames here, for example. And then there's how long that's going to last, like that. The only thing is that we want to obviously be mindful of how the speed of that affects the velocity that we're sourcing into our pyro. So in this case, you can see here at the beginning that we're not going to have as much velocity. If we had shorter frame duration, that would be higher velocity. So because obviously these particles are going to be moving further in that set frame duration. So it's something to keep in mind, that frame duration does also kind of correspond to velocity in a way, because we're expanding the time over which these particles are moving to this expansion point. And so, it just kind of depends on what the look is that you're going for. So we can also change the exterior expansion and the interior expansion. So say we wanted these, to expand more, we could set this to 5 and 5. I'm just trying to remember if there's anything in here. No, not really. Just a duration ramp. So we could adjust that if we wanted to. The other, yeah, maybe we could actually, we'll see. We could always play with this. We could make this linear. That might make it a little bit, so that as it's getting to the end, it's not slowing down. It's just kind of continuing at the same speed. And then once our source lets off, then the sim will kind of slowly kind of come to rest. So that's an option as well. Let's just see here. I don't think we have anything that we need to worry about too much here. I'm going to turn this off for a second. Let's just set this back to its original size, 3 and 3. Yeah, it is actually. You're right. Yep. Those are the new Bezier handles right here. Yep. So they're pretty fun, because obviously we could add in points like this, and the handles don't actually, like if you used Bezier handles before, you couldn't go past, these are all actually kind of internally in Houdini. These are all kind kind of the same points, but they're just defined as handles, like when you do it as Bezier. So now we've kind of changed this a bit. So it actually has, better handles and ways to work with these and stuff. I think there was actually just some adjustment to this too. Was it this? Maybe? I can't remember. There was something that they just changed in today's release. I can't remember what it was, but there was something like where it yeah, maybe it's that. I don't know. There was something where you were having trouble when you were selecting multiple ones. And I think that just got fixed today. So, anyways, yeah, it's a nice new feature. Obviously UI UX is a big part of what, Side Effects is trying to do with, making sure that this is, that the UI is helpful for artists and things like that. Okay, so we've got our Pyro burst source. We also are then going to do a volume rasterize attributes. Put that down. That's going to turn those points into a volume. However, we need to tell it which attributes to set. So let's do density and V. Also, up here, I should mention that there's different components that we can set up here. So sourcing, we have density, we have temperature, and we have burn. We don't need burn. We're not going to be doing any burning. We really probably don't even need temperature either, but that's fine. So it's also calculating V up here. You can see it's right there. So down here now we are, we're actually going to be setting it up that way. So now we have density and V. Those are the two attributes that we're rasterizing here. And then if we do a Pyro solver, we should be able to just plug this in here, start to get some sim results. So let's just kind of see what happens here. Yeah, there we go. Getting a little burst. The one thing I'm going to do is just change the shape a little bit. Really don't want any buoyancy in this. Let's change shape. Maybe we'll add a little bit of disturbance in here. And I'm going to change what is it under? Yeah, exactly. Could do a little helicopter landing there. Yeah, all the Pyro stuff works so great. Sometimes people think it's only explosions, but it's smoke as well. It's all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty helpful for just about anything, volumetric simulation. There's a really cool example in the Houdini 20 keynote or in the test stuff. There's also a new thing to deal with. What's the word? With settling of volumes under gravity based on density. So that's like a nice little update. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember where this is, or basically I don't want this to, there it is, dissipation. I'm just going to turn this down a little bit so it doesn't dissipate quite as much. Temperature doesn't matter. We don't need flame. Cool. So yeah, here we can also get rid of the flame, and V is good. We can source the temperature, I guess, as well. Whatever. I don't know if that's really going to matter too much, but we'll do that. So let's see here. So we've got that coming in. Yeah, it's really nice. I think it's cool because you can like in situations like that where you have something like landing or something that's like not just smoke but is like dust, that different parts of it should have different weight. It really changes the look quite a bit, and it can really be helpful. So oops, I hit D by accident. So yeah, so here's our simulation kind of going right now. It's a little boring because it's all just kind of going horizontally here, so we're not really getting anything too interesting. So zoomed way out on that. So let's do something here. Let's do an attribute just vector up here. And so what this is going to allow us to do is actually take these velocities here And I'll go back just a little bit so we can see these maybe a little bit better where they're longer. Hopefully that's not too hard to see. Let me know in the chat if it is a little hard to see. I can always switch up the color. I might do it anyways. Let's do background. We'll do the dark gray. Yeah, maybe that's easier to see. I don't know. Anyways, so because we're just dealing with attributes on points, we can do an attribute adjust vector here. We can add in some noise here to noise up our velocity. And we can change the element size here as well. So maybe we just bring this element size down a little bit to maybe 0.5. And we should probably do this 0 centered, I think, to add it in. So now you can see that we're actually getting some change here, and we can kind of adjust more or less there. So let's just leave it at 1. Let's see how that works. Let's go back here. We'll run this again. What this should be doing is adding a little bit more interest in here. And you can see that we're getting maybe some more interesting curves and kind of things pushing around here. And that's really the idea that we want to go for here, is some more interesting, examples of movement and things like that. Cause we're just going to be using the velocities here, right? We're not going to be using the whole, the smoke or anything like that. So let's do 120. I'm just going to shorten this a little bit. I don't think we need to go quite as long with it. You can just kind of see what's happening here. And maybe, maybe it's even more. Maybe we do 2, just kind of see where that gets us. Yeah, you can see how much this is changing that kind of end result down there, kind of at the end of this motion where it's pushing out like that. Let's take a look. I'm just going to push this to the end, let it simulate those last few frames. Let's take a look at the fields. We can use this to quickly see the velocity. So let's take a look at that. And maybe we can give it a little bit more divisions just to be able to see kind of what's going on here. And so these are sort of the trails kind of a velocity that we're seeing throughout this volume. We're kind of setting up start points to sample the velocity from, and then we're seeing that as it goes. So it's got this nice kind of rolling behavior here, which is cool. There's some interesting stuff going on here. So I think this will be good for us to at least start with. We could always source in some more velocity down the line. But I think this is starting to do something sort of interesting. The other thing you could do is just do a plane. You could do it on the XZ plane, and this will kind of visualize just that one plane as far as how that is kind of curling and moving and things like that. It's kind of funny that must not be visualized because it's like not letting me rotate around it. But yeah, you can see here we've got some interesting movement going on from this original sim. So this is really what kind of the velocities are going to do in there, which is helpful to kind of get a sense for. So I'm going to turn that off. We'll say no guide for now. So we've got this Pyro simulation going, right? And so the idea here is that we want to now take that and advect our simulation, another simulation with that. So let's do this. Let's first just cache this out. We can call this, version 1 or whatever. It doesn't have to be a super high resolution simulation. I might maybe just touch it up a little bit, like maybe go a little higher or a little lower with the voxel size just to get a little bit more detail, because this is obviously fairly quick. Oh, hey, welcome. First time in Cape Town. Wow, it is a late evening there. Well, welcome, Christian. Welcome to the stream. Glad you could join it. Yeah, Cape Town. Wow, all the way over in South Africa. Well, welcome to the live stream. All right, so let's do this. Let's take our voxel size from here. I'm just going to copy that parameter and make a link here so that, what am I missing? There it is, paste relative reference. While render wrangling. Cool. Oh, well, best of luck with your renders. I know that feeling all too well. All the best. Everybody send positive vibes for Christian's renders. Hopefully they'll all turn out just the way you wanted, as they always do, right? So, all right, let's just bring it down just a little bit. We'll maybe go down to 0.075 just to get a little bit more detail in there maybe. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy. I just want it to have a nice little bit of detail. It's actually funny when you get to some of these sizes and you're like, oh yeah, it's only, 4 million voxels or something like that. Like back, however many years ago, that would be like a debilitating number of voxels. And like now it's whatever, just give it a little more. Let's do a file cache here after this, and we'll just say they always turn out perfect. Yes, that's what we're just gonna hope that for the renders, that they'll just turn out perfect. All right, I'm just gonna just do a couple little things I like to do here. Hip sim. I like to make a sim folder instead. This will be we'll just say Pyro Vellum cache, something like that. And this should all be good. I don't think there's anything we need to change here. Yeah, that should be good. I'm just going to, yeah, that's great. Save it before cooking. All right, so I'm going to save that in the background so that I can just kind of keep working here while we go. I'm also going to make a null afterwards here and just say out vel. And make that green. In fact, what we could do as well here is we could get rid of some of these other fields and things like that, just so we're only dealing with the velocity. So, I mean, you can do that in the output of the Pyro solver as well. We could probably do a Pyro post process, I think also we'll do that. Well, what this will do, a couple things for us, which could be nice. We could convert it to a VDB if we wanted to. We can say combine volumes. I think that'll do the velocity. Let me just see here. Does that matter? Yeah. Right, so this would keep them. Nope, that's fine. We could just convert them to VDB that way and then just blast out the rest like so. And we could just grab just velocity and delete the non-selected. So now we only have the velocity. You're not seeing it in the viewport here, but I assure you it is there. We can see it right here. And we can also do an attribute delete maybe, and just get rid of some of these extraneous, kind of extraneous things. I don't think we really need any of this stuff at this point. So we'll just say all detail attributes we can get rid of. That's fine. Those are just visualization attributes and things like that. So we'll just get rid of those. And then actually, I'll just do a delete non-selected. So we just want to keep name. We want to keep, I don't think we even really need that. Color, material, no. I mean, position will stay. It's not going to delete that. So really, that's pretty much it. That should do the trick. And now we just have the Pyro volume coming out, and that's cool. So that's a purple one, but that's like a support one. So I'm just going to do that. Make another geometry node here. We'll say sim threads. And this is going to be kind of where our actual scene is going to be kind of done, the thing that I actually want to do, which is that thread animation. So I'm just going to do something pretty basic here. I guess the one thing I should see is just how big this gets before the end. What's our dimensions here? So our size is about 20 by 20. So that's fine. I can make these threads a little bit longer than that. Maybe we'll make them about 30 long or something like that. We'll see. So what I'm first going to do, just to give myself a little bit of a simpler scene to work with, is start with a line. And we're going to do this in the direction of Z. So, X. I read that wrong. That was weird. So we'll do it in X. Length, I think I said 30. Should be good. For right now, we'll just leave it with 2 points. Let's do a match size. Center it like that. Yeah, that should be cool. I think that'll be fine. Maybe we'll make it a little longer. Make it 40. What the heck? Then if we want to zoom out a little bit, we can. Cool. All right, so we've got one line here. Let's just do a duplicate. And we'll make a few copies. We'll translate these over a little bit. Oh, not in the X, but in the Z. That's right. So we can kind of go however long we want with these. Maybe we'll do something like that. And I'm going to do another match size just to center these up. So there we're starting to get somewhere cool. We could always offset this a little bit because we don't need it to be perfectly centered. So we could just kind of offset that a little bit and then make a few more here. Maybe we do like 25 of those. I don't know. And yeah, something like that. Because I'm like seeing where this movement actually is. So maybe it'll be something like this that we'll play with first. So right now we don't have, let me make a camera here. That'll just kind of be our fallback position to be able to look at this from. And there you can see it's kind of all covered in the viewport, in the camera angle. So that's nice. So let's take a look at this and just get a little bit better resolution on these lines. Yep. I don't want to be locked into that camera. There we go. All right, so we need some more points. We only have 2 on each of these. So let's do a resample here, and we can make this a little bit finer point-wise. Now I'm going to hide the other objects so we're not seeing those. These are quite a few points here, so I don't think we need them to that extent. So let's do maybe like that. Let me make these points a little bigger so we can see them. Let's do 5 maybe. Yeah, it's probably a little easier to see. So now we have, you know, these points here. So let's just start with that. And the reason I'm doing it this way is kind of this idea of don't start with something super, super complicated, right? Like I could start with these as, you know, the actual random thread kind of, you know, twisted threads and things like that. But that's going to just complicate things, I think, too much. And so there's no reason to kind of go to that extent, right? You want to do something a bit simpler, make sure things are working the way you want it to, and then you're going to not only have more iterations that you can do, but also, you know, it'll be quite a bit quicker. So there's kind of this just faster time to be able to make choices and kind of go back and forth. So that's why I'm doing it that way, if you're wondering. These will be where the threads will live when I make the final thing, but for right now, that's what we're doing. Let's do this. Let's make a Vellum hair, Vellum configure hair. We can always play around with some of these settings in a little bit, but for right now, we'll do that. Just visualize the thickness of these. It seems fine for now. Not going to be too big of a problem. Yeah, let's do that. Looks good. And I'm just looking kind of at, okay, how high resolution do these need to be to start making some interesting shapes, to make some, you know, kind of some actual, what's the word I'm looking for? Some representative choices on how this might look better or worse and kind of go from there. So we've got this Vellum hair. I'm just going to say, config, that's backwards, config, threads, something like that. We're using hair, but in this case, I'm just calling it threads. You could do string as well. I forget the differences. I think it's in orientation, I want to say. I'm trying to remember, but I think we'll just stick with hair right now. I think that's how I did it before. So let's do a Vellum solver just to start this whole process off. Working on the look dev for the lines. I'm not sure what that means, but that sounds cool. Look dev is always fun. Sometimes I get better results with hair. Yeah, I mean, there are definitely differences, and right now my brain is blanking on what those specifically are. But yeah, there's definitely a difference. Oh, I'm like, what's going on here? Why did that? Because it just simulated these all falling. I was on frame 120 and it went all the way to the end. Let's just add a substep in there just to give it a little bit more to work with. And let's go in here and we're going to add some forces. We're going to say advect by volumes. Cool. Pop advect by volumes. We're going to be using the vel field, and let's grab where the SOP is, the SOP path that we're going to use, which if we go up here, we can see here's our sim pyro velocity. Here's our out velocity. We'll accept that. And maybe the air resistance will set to half for right now. We might be upping the velocity scale a little bit. Let's just kind of see what starts to happen here, and then we can kind of go from there. So let's do this here. Let's see what we've got going on. And yep, things are working. However, I forgot to turn gravity off. So we're getting our threads moving around, but they are falling down currently. So kind of a little weird. Let's turn that off. So forces, gravity. There's also the new wind shadowing as well, but I'm not going to play with that tonight because there's no need to shadow the wind. But that's a fun new thing. If you haven't seen that, basically you can set up it'll block the wind based on, I think, colliders and stuff like that. I haven't really played around with it too much, but yeah, you can turn on wind shadowing, and that's kind of interesting. It's like blocking the force of the wind. So, all right, let's see what's going on here. See what we've got moving and happening and things like that. And there we go. We've got our threads kind of advecting around, doing its thing. Let's turn the points on so we can kind of analyze what's going on here. Yep, sort of interesting. Some interesting movement going on. Might actually need to resample these just a little higher. So maybe we'll do 0.25 on these just to get a little bit more, just to get a little more shape out of them. They were getting a little bit, maybe just a little bit too, too rough to really be able to make a good quantitative judgment call here. But yeah, we're starting to get some interesting shapes and results here. Let's let this go to the end and we can kind of play it back and see. Let's maybe go to our cam, move this over a little bit, and let's just make a flip book of this to take a look at it. See what's going on here. Yeah, I kind of like that 0G look. It's got kind of a fun little thing going on to it there. It's also really fun that like these lines kind of come straight in because it's like they're not being affected by gravity. So the forces are just almost pulling on them like straight. So it's just like almost like unraveling them. It's really weird look. I should probably zoom out a little bit on this. I think that'll get us in a little bit of a better spot here. So let's do this. I might actually move up a little bit here. Let's just see that again. Just want to kind of get this in a little bit of a better visualization. Yeah, that's cool. It's doing its thing. So now let's say we wanted to maybe give this a bit more, I don't know, something a little bit more to it. I'm just going to maybe show our other objects here for a second. Why is our Pyro sim? Oh, right. Because we are not looking at the right spot. So let's do this. We'll visualize that. Just kind of see how this is actually influencing it, right? So is that going to change it much? Probably not. I don't really know if you can ghost it much more. But we can see how obviously the velocity forces here are driving that. And what we could do as well, well, let's do a couple things here. Let's first turn up I turned down this air resistance. We can turn that back up and see kind of how that actually looks and what that does. So let's do that now and kind of get a maybe A-B result here. So just going to, actually I'm going to close that because we didn't get a version of this here with it at 0.5. So cool. Let's see here. Sorry, I was just thinking of something. What this kind of stuff is actually like, if I was just kind of working on my own and wasn't trying to like talk through all these things and just wanted to get some results and see some different options, this would actually be a pretty decent spot. Like something like this would be a pretty good candidate for doing some wedging through tops, because you could set up something like the velocity scale and air resistance as some wedge options, just to kind of see like, okay, what does the air resistance look when it's at, maybe 0.1, 0.5, and 1, and then with a couple different velocity scales as well, just to see kind of how those things might affect the simulation. And you could get a few different looks at it and just kind of see, what it's doing quickly. Especially if you're going to do this kind of workflow a few different times, if you're going to try to get this look a few different ways, you might want to do that. And then you could kind of run a few wedges and do that pretty quickly. I mean, that would sim pretty quick, and you'd be able to get some results pretty fast of a few different wedges that way. I'm not going to do that right now just because I might get caught in that, like in some weird little, hello, Terry, welcome. Looking good. Thanks. I shaved today. Thank you. Yeah. So, let's do this. Let's up the air resistance a little bit. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I certainly don't think I would be, well suited to kind of talk to that, Mirko. I think, you're talking about people managing their file organization and structure and things like that for versioning. I haven't really had to do that in a larger studio sense. I've done that for myself, and I kind of have changed maybe a little bit over time. I truly don't know if I'd be the right person to talk about that, but that's an interesting, idea for a stream in the future. Talking about some of those types of things. That's a tough one. That's a tough one to kind of, just, like I said, I don't really think I have the answers in that type of a. Terry, we use file cache versioning. Yep. That's, I mean, that is super, super helpful for a lot of these types of things. There you go. Oh, great. That's good to know, Matul. Yeah. So maybe check out that Project Pegasus then, because that might be really interesting. It's more game dev oriented, but the pipeline stuff might be really interesting to look at that then. Yeah, that just came out. Was that yesterday? I think that stream was. I wasn't able to go to it, but yeah, it was really really interesting. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Thanks, Matul. So let's see the difference here between these two. Let's see here. Image, compare images. Yeah, so it looks like, which one's which? Sorry, Windows, sequence list. I just want to see which one's which. So on the left is the newer one. So what we should see is that there's going to be a decent. Let's do a vertical split. That might help. So which one is it? The bottom is going to be the one with the higher air resistance. So what that just means, as far as I understand it, is that you're going to have it kind of fit more precisely to the velocities that are coming from that sim. It's basically just going to add a little bit more, it's going to look like it adds a little more velocity into it. So the top one is the previous one, the bottom one is the new one. So like at the beginning here, you can see that it's really pushing it a bit quicker, but then actually some of that like flipping back over happens a little sooner. So that's a little bit different, where it's like kind of trying to fit the movement of those threads as closely as possible to the underlying simulation. So what might sometimes be a better choice is to do something like this, where we do 0.5 and 2. So we can add more velocity, but make sure that it can kind of release itself a bit more, not be like constrained to this simulation too much. So let's try this as well and see what this gets us. I think this might get us an interesting result. We'll take a look. I'll turn off this. Oh, didn't mean to have that in the middle there. Do that again. Yeah, so this should give us a little bit of a different feel here to how this goes. It's not going to be maybe as closely constrained to the to that kind of burst, that pyro burst that we created, but it will have more velocity being sourced in. So if we look at that one versus the initial one, we can kind of see the difference here is that maybe whereas at the beginning it gets pushed out a bit quicker, it then is allowed maybe to drift in some different ways that the other one isn't able to do. You can actually see sort of right here in the middle, it looks like we have some of these threads that are kind of doing some way different things than were being done here, where this is kind of staying a bit more localized out here. In this one, we're getting a little bit more chaotic movement. So, I mean, these are just kind of personal preference, you know, what artistic style you're going for. I mean, there is no right or wrong answer here. So certainly an interesting, you know, thing to look at. Maybe we'll just stick with what we have right here. So we've got this. We're starting to get some interesting looking simulation results here. But what if we wanted to actually turn this into something a bit more than just lines, right? We actually wanted to do threads. So let's take a look at how we might do that. I'm just going to unlock the viewport so I can move around a little bit. So we have these individual lines, but what we want to do is we want to have each of these threads kind of like a twisted bundle of individual fibers, right? So I think the term is that you would have a yarn, which is the bunch of them, and the yarn would have multiple individual threads. I believe that's the correct term. I might be wrong. I'm not an expert on fabrics and things like that, but from what I remember, that should be the terminology. But I think a really nice way of doing this, if you don't have something like, I think it was called Threadify that just came out recently that someone released, which is an amazing like tool set for, you know, building threads and things like that in Houdini, which I would have loved a few years ago, doing that in production. But here what we can do is we can do something like a circle. We'll do a circle with polygons, I think. Let's see here. We'll do that. We'll do a sweep. I think I did this the other day, or not the other day, but sort of recently. It's backbone curve. Yep. Okay, cool. Making sure I'm doing this right. Let's reverse those cross sections. And so we don't need those so big. So we can scale those down a little bit, something like that maybe. And let's do this. Let's do a couple full twists on this. So we'll get some twists going on. Yeah, maybe something like that. It's got kind of an interesting look. Yeah, sure. All right, so we've given these all a good full twist, and but we have these as tubes now, so we don't want that. So let's do a couple things here. So we need to give an attribute that's going to go on each of these individual threads that we're going to, you know, output here. So let's just do an enumerate, and we'll give these each. We'll call this thread, and we'll give it an integer value. Let's pull up our geometry spreadsheet here. We want this to be a point attribute because we're going to keep the points. So we have 11 threads per. We're going to sweep this again, and that is going to sweep all of these with the same thread number, right? So that's getting somewhere. So we're starting to get somewhere with that. And let's just put a extract all points. And we can delete geometry but keep the points. And so now what we should be able to do is do another add here and do polygons. And I think what we're going to do here is do it by attribute. The attribute name is going to be thread. And so now we should start to see this doing sort of what we wanted to. However, we're getting this weird behavior here where, well, it's not a weird behavior. It makes sense when you think about it. But the problem is that we have threads that are, you know, kind of looping around here, right? They're doing what we want it to. But when you get to the end, it's kind of, it's going back to the previous one because all of these have the exact same, what's the word? They all have the same thread number, right? So we have a thread 0 on each of these yarns, right? So we need to set up a way to do this. We could do it where we take, there's kind of two different ways we could do this. We could build an attribute that would, like here up at this copy, we could say copy number attribute here, and we could say yarn here, right? And then each of these are going to have yarn numbers. We come down here and sweep, right? We have these yarns, but we need to copy those over to the points. I think here we can do attributes from cross sections. And oh, there we go. We didn't even need to do that. Sorry. There is actually one in this sweep. This sweep actually has a curve number. We can call this yarn. Perfect. So now we have our threads and yarns, and we could build up, we could build an attribute from this where we take each of these and give them their own, their own value basically. So what we could do, at least a way that I would know of doing this is doing a point, at least a fairly simple way of doing this, I guess, point wrangle. Take this, we're going to make a string attribute from that. So we can just do s at, we could just call this, we could just call it name. That's easy enough, right? I don't think we were using name anywhere else here. Oh, sorry. No. Okay, just making sure I'm not like duplicating it. So we could just do s at name. And then we could do this really cool thing called sprint f. If you haven't done this before, this is a nice little way to kind of build a string from attributes. So let's just say we're going to say T, so that'll be for thread, or sorry, Y for yarn, and then we'll do %I. %I is going to be, let me make that a little bigger so you can see it. So %I is going to be where the integer value comes in. Row or column in the mesh type. Yeah, interesting. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, there you go. Bingo. Look at that. Nice suggestion. You know, I was trying to figure out how to do that better before, but yeah, that's way better. I'll just show you the rest of what I was going to do just because why not? It's fun. But yeah, that's way smarter. I always find the hardest way to do things. I appreciate that. Thanks. Thanks, Nar. I don't know how to say that full name, but cool. Very cool. Well, let me show you this anyways, because this is kind of fun. We'll do this, and then actually we'll just do this. Y1, and then thread %I. So that's going to be what we get. We're going to get Y and a number, T and a number. Yeah, it is. It's those little things like that that are like the simple things. Sometimes those are the hardest things to remember. All right, so here we're going to have two integer values that we're going to fill in. So the first one, the first %I is going to be at, let's see, it's going to be I at yarn. Then the second one is going to be I at thread. And I think that should do it. Yep, it did. So now if we did it this way and based it off of name, I think that should work. Yep. So that does the same thing. You could also do a for loop and just have it add together. So you could do a for loop with this and have it do what am I trying to say here? You could do this sweep within a for each loop or whatever. In fact, I might do that in a second here, but let's first start here. Community rules education for the win. Yes, agreed. Sometimes everybody needs to learn something. And today I remembered something and learned something again. Thank you. Cool. All right. So we don't need this stuff here. We can get rid of that, but that's interesting to look at. So I'll just keep that there if you want to take a look at that later in the files. I'll just bring this over here and say complicated way. And I guess that's a good enough spot to just remind everybody that if you'd like to get the files from this, you can certainly do that. You can go to Houdini Hangouts Discord. We have all of the the past, Hangout scenes that I've built and things like that out there. So those are all available and kind of out there for your consumption and to play around with and ask questions about if you run into any problems with them or have questions about them. There's places to ask that on the Discord as well. So just something to keep in mind. Discord link again there. It's just Houdini Hangout. There's an invite. Blah blah blah. Random plug for myself, I guess. Okay, so we have the sweep. I'm going to put this back to columns, I think. Yep, there we go. Boy, that kind of hurts my eyes. All right, so there's that. We should be able to just plug this in here now. The thickness of those looks okay. Let's maybe bring them down just a little bit. We'll bring them down to like 0.15. Now this is obviously going to take a little bit longer. So maybe what I'll do here is I'll undo that. Instead of it being 12, let's maybe do 8 for right now. And we'll just kind of see where this gets us. So let's go back to our camera 1, come down here, and let's just run this for a second and see where we get. This is fun. The end of these are really fun looking. Look at that. They're like twisting around. All right, I'm just going to bring this over here and make a new flipbook. Yeah, this is getting pretty fun. So I think the thing that I always think about personally when I'm messing around with stuff like this is how do I make it look less, what's the word? Less organized, because reality is not organized, right? Reality is always a bit messy. The other thing to keep in mind here too is we might want to have a few more points on this. I'm seeing a little bit of like harsh edges and lines here. So maybe what we do is just resample this down a little bit more. Let's see how our point count is. Yeah, I mean, it's not super dense, or it's not super like loose, but it doesn't feel like it's quite dense enough. So let's just, that's such a quick sim anyway. So let's do this. Let's make a new pass and let's just sim this here. This actually feels like really pretty quick to me. I don't know why I'm thinking it feels so quick. Maybe I've just been working on my other laptop for too long, but it just feels it's working a lot faster, even with a decent number of points being thrown in here, right? I mean, we've got 53,000 points that I threw in there, and it's only a few second simulation here, really. Yeah, we've got some interesting stuff going on here for sure. Cool. So I think what I want to do is change up the look of these threads before they get kind of pulled like that, and maybe tighten them up a little bit too, because I feel like they might be a little bit too like loose and they're all getting kind of pulled in together. That's really fun at the end there. There's a lot of details going on here. It's cool. Nice suggestion, whoever suggested looking at that Insidium stuff. I mean, it's cool. Motion graphics. All right. So this is where we're really going to look a bit more into something like a for loop, because I think that it's going to be helpful for us here. So we don't actually need these attributes that we've created, but that's okay. What I'm going to say here is, let's just do this based off of, let's just do this. Let's do another enumerate. Oops. Another enumerate. I'm just going to say index here, and we'll enumerate over that value. It's going to be an integer. It's going to be a primitive value, and it's going to be one for each of those. So, well, actually, okay. There's multiple ways you can do everything, right? I mean, you could do a for each primitive. So we could just do it based on the primitives themselves. Wire this in here and here. And now we're going to get one for each primitive. We could also do it based on some sort of piece attribute, which in this case is going to be index. And really that's going to be the same thing. There's not going to be any difference there, right? That's going to be the same. So let's not complicate things. We'll just do it for each primitive. So what we can do now, we can get some data here. We can use this meta import node, and I'm just going to say for each thread meta, just so it's a little shorter, easier to see what's going on. And we're actually going to use that over here on this this circle. And what I'm going to do is maybe do something here a little bit different. In fact, we don't even need this enumerate anymore either. So let's do this. Let's do a block begin, just to make sure that this is as clean as we can get it here. So we're going to do another block begin, and it's going to error at first because this is in its wrong state. So let's do this as a fetch input, and we're going to set up the block path to go to the end here. So this is the block path. So now we have an input that's being fetched here each time, and that's going to drive the creation of this this individual, bundle of threads, and we can do like that. And we're back to where we were before, right? But there's a few different things we could do here, right? We could add noise to that. We could do any number of things, right? So let's do this. Let's do a little bit of maybe a point jitter. On this. And this is going to add noise, throughout the whole thing, right? But it's going to be doing it in a bit of a predictable way because we're just noising it up based on kind of the initial, let's see here. So there's what it's kind of jittering to, right? So we're just jittering up this initial shape. So let's do maybe 0.5, and let's adjust this seed, because really that's what's going to drive this. And I think really what we want to do here is only jitter it in one axis. We don't want to do that axis, just those two. So now it's just a flat plane like that. So what we can do is we can actually take the detail attribute from this, for example, iteration, and pass that through this point jitter. So what we can do is we can say here, we can do a detail attribute expression, and we can grab from this for each thread meta. And then we're going to do the attribute name now. So that would be iteration. And then the last one is the attribute index, which I don't think matters because we don't have an index for it, but we'll just do 0. And then that should be that. And now what we should get, yep, you can see we have 24 here. So what we should have now is a different kind of jitter for each of these threads. So we're going to get a different look for each of these bundles, and they're going to have a different style to them, a different kind of organization of those threads. And we can push that a little bit further if we wanted to, and we'll get a bit more, variation between each of them. We can also add in some jitter as well after the fact, or some noise. So we could do something like, let's see, attribute noise, I think would work. Let's see. Don't want to do CD. Let's see, we could just do P. And we could do that. Something like this, just to give it a little bit of extra noise here. We don't want to go too crazy with it, and we'll make sure this is 0 centered. Don't want anything too drastic, but maybe something like that could be cool. Maybe we'll do 5 for the element size. So now we're starting to get a bit more variation from the beginning here, and that should hopefully drive this to look a little bit more interesting in the end as well. And then that way it doesn't just look like it's all the same thing kind of happening, right? And that should give us some variation to the initial state of it, therefore making the entire simulation a bit more interesting, bit more variation, all that kind of stuff. And obviously here we have a lot of different variables that we can play around with. We can play around with stuff with the actual Vellum sim. We can play around with stuff with the Pyro sim. There's all sorts of different things that could be adjusted and changed here. So there's really quite a bit to kind of think about and play with. The other thing to do, kind of interesting stuff going on here. So let me also do this. Let's go back to this stage here, and let's just maybe bring the circle size down just a little bit. Say, well, maybe half. I don't know. Maybe something a little bit more like that. Maybe not quite that. Maybe there. That's good. And then we could also give this, maybe go back to 12 there. Just going to kind of play with these values a little bit here, get them somewhere I like them. Yeah, maybe that's cool. Oh, I was just thinking of another thing here, that instead of doing this where we get it the length down for these resamples, cool. Well, John, I think that's perfectly reasonable. It's a late evening for you there, but thanks for stopping by. Yeah, late night / morning. Nice to see you in the chat, and hope everything's going well in the UK. It was nice to get to hang out with you while we were there. Cool. So now we're getting something here. Let me just maybe make a new flip book here for us. Yeah, you can see how much nicer this looks now that it's not this like same. Since it's not this like really even grid here, it's just so nice when you kind of break up those patterns, so it's not just feeling so digital, right? Break it up a little bit. It adds some interest in a bunch of different ways, not just like, I haven't really changed anything with the simulation, but look at how much that's really done something there. We've added some more threads into it. We've done a whole bunch of things and really gotten some interesting, I think, results just from some fairly minor changes. We've gotten quite a bit more interest in some of these thread movements, and even with these all twisting together and stuff like that, we still have a pretty nice. Hey KG, how's it going, man? Welcome. Yeah, we're doing some thread. Just add chaos. Life. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Chaos theory. Roll the dice. Get some randomness in there. But yeah, so we've got some interesting stuff going on here with some threads. And yeah. So what I did there is I actually turned it down a little bit because I was just thinking that I really didn't need to up the simulation resolution. I can add in some subdivisions to these lines and get the output pretty well, pretty similar to what the input was, and get a nice result that way as well. So let's do that. Let's take the Vellum solver. We'll do Vellum, what is it? Post-process? Yeah. And then what we can do here, I'm not locked in, right? So we have, this is our point count right now, right? And let's maybe get a little later in this simulation. We can see sort of what's going on here and get a little zoom in somewhere, maybe like here, right? So we can see that we're getting some, some pretty decent curves, but there's definitely some resolution issues here. So what we could do is we could just add in a subdivision, one subdivision depth there, and now we're getting a really nice little addition to that. We could cache that out maybe, do whatever we want, but we definitely get quite a bit more resolution out of that and a smoother result. We can just see the difference there. I mean, how much smoother that is just with one subdivision depth. I think we can also do detangle on this, and that'll make sure that if there's anything that's, maybe too tightly kind of winding together, it'll help try to untangle some of those messy little parts. It might not be super noticeable, but it's a little post-process thing that might help, with your final look on things. Yeah, exactly. That was, I don't know if you said that before I said that or whatever, but I started doing that. But yes, Matul, you're right. You're right on board with me. So we're starting to get some interesting kind of looking results here. Just as a reminder, what we were looking for was something like this here. Hello? I've got this in super slow motion, so yeah, we've got something like that going on. It's a little different, but it's an interesting look, I think. And what we could do is we could certainly, oh yeah, the LinkedIn comments are delayed. Yes, that makes sense. Those are delayed. Yes, for sure. I don't even know where you're commenting or anything like that. Hey, Zach, how's it going? Yes, there definitely is this p-scale in the threads dictating that. Yes, 100%. So if we go here, just type in p-scale, we can see that each of these has a p-scale on them. That's getting created by the Vellum constraint. That is being done here. We can visualize that thickness. That thickness corresponds to these p-scales. And there they are. So we could make it thicker if we wanted to. I don't want to go too crazy. Maybe like 0.25, something like that. And that would keep them a little bit further apart. I don't know how different that's going to really look. Oh, shoot. I'm like, where's the camera number? Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun little thing. Let's see how that looks overall. Let's do that. So that was, well, actually, you know what? Let's do this. Well, sure, we can do this. Sorry, I'm a little all over the place tonight for some reason. Let's make a new flip book, run that. So yeah, let's see what this looks like at 0.25. It'll probably twist together less, I'm thinking, maybe. I don't know. It's an interesting question. I'm not sure. You know what? I just want to make sure something real quick here. I'm just going to pull this up, make sure. Yep. While this is simulating. If anybody ever notices anything like with the stream or anything like that that's acting funny or weird, please always feel free to reach out to me in whatever way works for you, email or whatever, Discord, that type of thing. Slack, if you find me somewhere there. Always interested because I know there was a thing from Twitch maybe a month or two ago, and that I was like doing some weird glitchy stuff. So if you ever see anything like that, always feel free to let me know. I've had it before where my mic, it was actually taking the microphone from my webcam instead of this microphone that's right in front of me. But the problem is that I hear my microphone through my interface, so I'm not actually hearing. I don't want to hear the delay from the computer processing it and then all that stuff. So if there's ever anything weird like that you're like, hey, it doesn't sound like it normally does, or it doesn't do this, like this seems a little off, you're always welcome to let me know that. Always be curious about that. Yeah, it's definitely yeah, no worries, man. Yeah, that's oh, it's interesting. That's really keeping those kind of bundles quite a bit more like linked together almost, because some of them might be intersected when that starts. So that might keep them together. So that's kind of interesting. It's kind of a weird unintended side effect of making that a little side effect of making that a bit thicker, is that you're getting some of those kind of staying together a bit more. So that's kind of interesting. I actually like that. That's nice. That's a nice look. But yeah, it's late night radio voice. Thanks. It is always weird to hear myself back, but I'm getting a bit more used to it these days, so that's fine. All right, so we've got that going. Another thing that might be really interesting to do here is to add some random color to this. So let's do that. I'm going to do this before the post process just so we don't have to keep watching through it. And what we should be able to do here is attribute adjust color. Let's do maybe random from a ramp, but let's do it based on an attribute number, and we'll just do that. This is where an enumerate actually comes in. Oh, what did I just do? Typed the wrong thing. This is where an enumerate will actually come in handy, because I can do this with a primitive index. Oh, I'm like, why am I not seeing that? There it is, because there's a p scale. I had a thing in my attribute here and it was filtering by p scale. So let's do this. We can grab index. All right, needs to get promoted. Well, in this case, then I guess it would be simpler to do a connectivity, because we can actually write a point attribute based on what each connective piece, that's called class. Yeah, you could certainly do that. Yeah, we can take a look at that in a second. All right, so we've got this connectivity. I'm just going to call this index. There we go. And now we can get some random colors here going. Maybe what I'll do is we'll just make an interesting color scheme of some sort. I don't know. Gosh, I'm always so bad at picking these types of things. Let's do some blue. I'm just going to pull a couple of these out. Just maybe make like 3 colors. Per frame resampling. I'm not sure what you mean. Like after the simulation resampling it? Is that what you're talking about, Miracle? I'm kind of curious what you're meaning there. Just to maybe make sure that it stays pretty smooth. Not sure. In the solver. I'm not familiar with that. Maybe I have just never done that before. First of all, I could probably up that a little bit just to make sure we don't lose anything here. So each frame will be resampled. Do you mean like the substeps? Or... Yeah, I'm curious what you're talking about there, Mirko. I'm not familiar with that workflow. That's interesting. Hey, I'm up for learning. Let me know. All right, well, let's do the first thing here where we can pin those endpoints. So that should be a fairly simple thing to do. Let me just think. If I do a group node, can I do the... let's see here. If I do it here... No. Can I do it with a group by range? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Why is that not show? Oh, there we go. Yep, there we go. Yep, you could do a group expression as well. That certainly would work. I always like to I think this is kind of a nice, simpler way for people that are newer to doing this. There's always a million ways to do everything programmatically, node-based. You could do it at Vops, you could do it Vex, you could do it however. But I like to show kind of the less, in-depth way of doing things. This group by range is kind of nice. When we're looking at this with the connectivity, this will let us see each thread separately. Basically, I was kind of thinking there was a way to do this. I was actually just playing around with something like this the other day. So now we've got all those endpoints. Let's just call these pins. And we'll throw this in here. We'll pin those points. Pins. Cool. And then we can run this. So let's go back to cam 1 here and see what happens. Obviously, this is going to be drastically different, but let's see. Yeah, it's kind of like spinning around some of these because they're almost like becoming taut, I think. I think that's what I'm seeing here. Let's see. I'll let that play out and then we can unpin. Oh, I think I see what you're saying, Mirko. So it's like it's allowing them to extend and then you resample it. Yeah, okay. Okay, I think I see what you're saying. So if you'd have to do that in a SOP solver inside of it, I think. The tricky thing with that is I think with Vellum, in Vellum you don't want to have changing point numbers in regard to your constraint geometry and your simulation geometry. So that could be a little tricky. And I'm not 100% sure on how to do that, but I'd love if you wanted to drop something like that in the, if you found something where someone talks about that could be really interesting to take a look at. I haven't done that before personally. I'm not really sure of that workflow too well. Subajit, are you talking about doing soft pins on the end of it? Is that what you're saying, instead of having right? Yeah. So you have to be adding new constraints after the line. Yeah, I haven't done a ton of that stuff, so I'd have to kind of play around with that a little bit before I'm like, I'd hate to be here just kind of I don't know what the word is, just sort of goofing around and not really knowing anything of what I'm doing, because that would be a bit out of what I've done before. All right, so let's see what this looks. So yeah, so we've got these sort of moving like that. And so that's with them as hard constraints. Or as pin constraints. Let's see here. What if we did soft? And they're going to be, actually, you know what? In that case, it'd be better to not do it this way and say, is it pin, see Vellum constraints. We'll just add them separately because this is going to take on the stiffness of that. So if we do pin to target, I think what we'd want to do is soft. Do the stiffness as, I don't know, 100. This I'm just going to zoom out just to kind of see what's happening here. So for example, this is what it would be like at the start. So this would be like what it would normally be like. So let's just see this here. Oh, I'm not looking at the simulation, so that's not going to show us anything. Here we go. Oh, I pinned all the points, so that's not going to show us a darn thing. Points, pins. Hello? That's weird. I don't think, is that? I think that's doing what I wanted it to. Weird. Okay, so this is what it was doing before, where they weren't moving at all. So they're just rigidly kind of held in place like that. So the ends aren't moving at all. Okay, let's try to soften that up. Let's maybe just set it to 100 for now. We'll see where that gets us. Still pretty solid. Let's go way down. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, so maybe even further than that. That's sort of an interesting idea. I mean, I hadn't really thought of making a really soft constraint to hold them sort of in place. So that kind of starts to do it, but then we'll bring them back a little bit eventually. Interesting. Yeah, so it definitely keeps them a bit more like orderly, right? Doesn't let them get into all those weird shapes that they were in, because it's kind of like, it's making this weird springy kind of thing going on there. It's really, really wild to watch the way that works. Let's even go further with it. It's like barely a spring. It's like, I just want to hold on to it a little bit. Yeah, look at that. It's just starting to slow it down right there. Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, it'd probably be somewhere in that range. That is what I would do. Maybe take that. In this, I guess, shows a good way to kind of look at some of these working with constraints, where you've got these like kind of power of 10 values where you're like, oh, okay, I liked kind of what was happening between 0.1 and 0.01, but maybe I want to go a little further than that. You can use then the number next to it to kind of to kind of focus that in, right? But that's interesting. I mean, it certainly is a very different feel to it because these ends don't completely unravel, right? So if we were in closer and looking at it like this, let's do that as a sequence here. Like we're sort of getting some interesting stuff going on here, but then it's also pulling back. So it's a different look. It's a different feel, right? But it's kind of interesting. It's doing some interesting stuff there. So that's what it looks like with the springs. And then if we turn this off and do another sequence here, and I'll just let that kind of go in the background here. I think we should more or less, these should almost look exactly the same up to a certain point, right? I'm not sure what that point would be, but let's see here. Yeah, they're still pretty similar. I think it's only going to be once we get to kind of probably halfway that it'll really start to kind of drastically differ. You can see these. Yeah, so this is obviously a much more chaotic look here in the end, right? In the end, we've got all these threads unraveling and doing all that kind of stuff. In the end here, this sort of pulls back and does some interesting things there. So it's really kind of what it is you're interested in, right? You could go even less and have it not pull back as hard, but just sort of keep itself held in place a little bit and get some interesting looks that way as well. So there's certainly some things you could do here. The other thing you could certainly add in would be a little bit of turbulence to this simulation, just straight like turbulent, something like pop wind or whatever, just to kind of move it around some of the background so that it doesn't look like it's just staying completely still when there's no, when the volume is not touching it basically. Yeah, Anandu, nice to have you. Thanks for joining. Get some sleep. There's the recording. Ooh, just smashed the table. The recordings will always be there, so sleep is an important thing. So get your sleep. Yeah. So Zach, you were asking a question there for Mirko, and I think it's an interest. I think you're kind of thinking of it a little off, but I see what you're saying. So this really isn't so much about the resolution of the sim. What he was saying is that if you're resampling it while this sim is happening, it's almost like you can think about it where when these, let's get to one of these frames here where these get really stretched out somewhere, like probably in here somewhere. There's probably a good stretch going on somewhere here. Actually, this stuff is not very stretchy at all. So I don't think we're getting... Oh, cool. Nice. Oh, cool. Oh, this is so funny. I seriously am always trying to keep track of who is what handle on Discord and all that stuff. So okay, now it's making sense here. Yeah, so everybody go check that out over on the Discord server if you want to check that out. Let's see. Sorry, it was yeah, that's really cool. I'll have to take a look at that and see what it is that you're. Well, hey, what the heck? We're here now, right? Let's see. Let me just download this real quick. One moment, please. Hold. And then we'll open that up. Open. Yeah, I think the idea that you were saying here is that it allows it to kind of stretch out in ways that you wouldn't be able to like kind of expand a little bit and not just, well, we'll take a look at it, see exactly what it's doing. Yeah, that would be pretty tricky to retime after a per frame resample. You would be able to retime what I'm doing here much easier. I'm not sure about that specifically. Why is this not opening? Open up, please. All right, there we go. Now it's opening. Yeah, this would definitely be able to be retimed. Yeah, I know. Would be able to be retimed quite easily. Whereas the other, like if you had changing point counts, that would be pretty tricky. You might be able to do some. Oh, cool. Well, no problem, John. I go pretty late, so please don't feel feel like you have to stick around, but I appreciate it. Yeah. Yep, Mirko, I think you're exactly right there. Would motion blur be a problem with this new resample method? I think it would be a very similar situation where it could really be an issue. All right, so this is what Mirko sent over. Cheers, John. Nice to see you in the chat. I'm gonna put this into my mode just so I can make things a little bigger. Okay, so what do we got here? We got a line coming in with some points, 2 points. We're resampling it here. Bunch of points. We've got some pins. We're pinning the end. Hair. Pins. Yep. All makes sense. We've got some bendiness. Cool. All right, so let's take a look at what's going on in here. So we have SOP solver, resample, generate. Oh, I see. Resample, generate constraints. Yep. And then this is merging those constraints in. Yep. So what's happening here? What's happening here would be that we're resampling this kind of constantly in here and resetting up the hair with the rest. We're calculating those rest lengths again, right? So we're recalculating kind of all of the things in here that tell it how long, actually that would be under the constraint geometry, I think. Yep, rest length. So that's going to be what's happening, is that as this constantly gets resampled, it's telling it kind of this new rest length every single frame. So when it gets pushed, it's going to resample, make those constraints again, output the geometry. So this first one is doing the resample and the hair, making these hair constraints, and we're outputting this right here back to the geometry that we're working on. So this top one is a SOP solver that's in geometry, that's looking at the geometry stream. So this bottom one is looking at our constraint geometry stream. And so what this one's doing is simply just merging in from that previous SOP solver. So it's actually like the data is passing out from here and into here, right? So this second null output is getting brought in here and then merged into the constraint geometry stream, and then we're outputting that here. So then over here is a pop wind that's going to be blowing it around. Let's just hit play and we'll take a look at what this is doing. So it's growing basically. So as it gets pushed, it grows in those directions and it makes this a longer and longer thread. So let me just slow that down a little bit there. So there's your thread kind of growing and expanding. And yeah, it's an expanding point count. And it, yeah, it's doing some interesting stuff. So we could just take this and plug this right in. So let me just make sure I didn't do anything weird here. Pins. Right. Which would be right. If it pushes it back, it makes it smaller. Yeah. Right. Yep. So it's basically just taking the forces and kind of baking that force into the geometry, basically, because Yeah, I'd never seen that done before. That's really smart. I never thought about doing that before. Um, I'm kind of always surprised that there's not a way to do that in line here. Is there? Wait a second. I thought there was. Yep. I think you could do it in here. Yeah. So if you used one of these SOP solvers, you could do it all in one. So I think you could do, let's just try it. What the heck? You only live once, right? So let's copy this over to here, paste this in here. This will go out. Hello? Oh, right. Uncompilable. Can't do that. Never mind. That's why it's not done that way. Yeah, animating rest length using a noise node. Yeah. Yeah, if you did that, you could, that would basically be like allowing the, in this case, the threads to stretch out in certain parts. Yeah, there's a lot in Vellum. And that's the thing, is that you can use any, like when you're doing something like this with a SOP solver, obviously it's much more complicated to think about this because you're dealing with two different types of data and all that kind of stuff. But let me just copy this over. I actually think this will copy right in and be fine. Oh, the only bad thing is it'll set my thing into limited commercials. So let's just do it in here. I'll just do it from scratch. That's fine. Let's do a SOP solver here. And then we're going to do, what was that again? I just want to make sure I'm thinking of this right. Resample hair. Is there anything special you did there? Nope. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do, I think, is just grab the resample here, copy that in because that was the length of it before. So let's do that. That'll be the resample. And then we'll do the hair from right here, since that's in the same. Well, let's just do this. I'm just going to, oops, I'm going to just turn this off. We'll just pin those in place for now. That'll be fine. So we'll just say pins here. We'll copy this over and put that in here. Then I'll put down a null, call that con. That'll be our constraint geometry out. Okay, cool. And then SOP solver again. Here we'll say constraint geometry. We'll just object merge that in. Where's that? Okay, I think that's right. I think that's right. Let's give it a shot. Doesn't seem to be changing a whole lot based on what that was doing before. Let me just see. Oh, that's a good question. Wouldn't changing point count cause the pin group to be changing? I would think that too, actually. It's a good point. But no, it seems to be fine. Although, what is going on over here? I think that's just some like collision stuff that's pushing that around. It's interesting. But no, the pinned points seem to be staying right. You know why it's not doing that? It's because it's doing it via a resample. And so that's going to keep those endpoints the same. If you were trying to pin points in the middle, it might mess it up, but at the end, it should be fine. Now, I don't think there's going to be a huge difference in this file now that I'm thinking of it, but let's just see here. I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right one here. That one's spinning out. This is one that pulls back. Yep. This is one that doesn't pull back. Okay. So let's just see what this does. Okay, so that's the one version. And then let's make a flipbook of this most recent one. Yeah, so I think the big difference here really is going to be that we're not going to, this is going to be kind of a mix between it being pinned and unpinned, right? Because it's going to be able to stretch out and not be pulling so hard on that. Like, it's not going to be pulling really strongly in this axis because when it stretches out here, it's kind of dissipating, I think, some of that force when it's resampling and kind of enabling that that kind of growth, right? So you're not going to see as much pulling here. So let's just take a look at that over here and see what that looks like. Yeah, see, we're not getting quite as much pulling here because this is allowing it to stretch out, right? So this is what it looks like here, and that's what it looked like before. So this is, other than that resample, this should be the exact same thing where we have the ends pinned, but in this case, it's not pulling them taut here. It's allowing them to stretch out like this. So it's kind of giving us a little bit of both of those worlds there. So it's giving us that kind of straight pull along those lines, but also, so it's like kind of the mix between this. It's like this with the ends kind of unraveling and the one where it's pinned, but it's kind of like in the middle of those two in a weird way, right? So yeah, it's kind of a different beast, but it's really interesting. I'm curious how many points that changes from the beginning to the end. Like how many have we created here? So we started with 48.3. It's not that many actually. So 53. So we've added in like 15,000 points. Is that right? I mean, to say that's not that many, I guess is a little bit of an overstatement, but yeah, it's kind of interesting. No, that's interesting. I don't know. Let's see. No, it should be fine. I don't think it's going to do anything too crazy with it. Yeah, let's play. Let me do a sequence of that too, just to see what that looks like. So if there's any like instability with it or anything, but I don't think that would really, because the Vellum post process isn't really doing anything, like with time, right? It all has to do with, detangling, with thickness, with subdivisions, but those are all kind of time independent. It's not really looking at the point count changing over time isn't going to matter. With the retime, it will freak it out probably because of that. But let's see here. No, it looks totally fine to me. I don't see anything weird here. I mean, the other thing really kind of funny about that is that I don't even see any difference between those two because it kind of, I guess there is probably a little bit of a difference right there. Yeah, I guess there's a little bit, but it's really going to be a pretty minor difference in a lot of ways because you're already almost doing that subdivision in a way. you're kind of smoothing things out by constantly resampling. There's a previous frame. What is that with previous frame? There is a previous frame. It would need to calculate the difference between points on different frames. Yeah, if there was something that it was trying to... Yes, that's interesting. Yeah, if the Yep, this seems all fine, so that's good. So it is still calculating the velocity correctly there. So I think that's fine, because there's all our velocity vectors and they don't seem to be doing anything too weird. No, okay, so with the post process, I don't think there's anything it's doing with the previous frame at all. Oh, that's fun. I didn't know it would do that. What's happening here? Is that what am I looking at? What's in here? What's happening? We've got a sweep in here. Hello? I didn't know there's a sweep. That was really surprising. Is that, oh, look at that. I didn't know it would sweep it. That's fun. Oh, that's just so fun. I mean, it's going to be slow, but that's just so fun. I didn't know that did that. Cool. Huh. Cool. No, there isn't anything in here that's doing anything with time. So subdivision is just subdivision. That's simple. Spatial blur is just that. It's blurring it within space. So that has nothing to do with time. None of the thickness, collision correction. I mean, maybe detangle does a little something with that. But I don't think so. Anyways, yeah, just slow. It's just slow to play back like this. Just rendering it would be better. But yeah, it's a thing. You can turn it on or off, whatever. So, yeah, Zach, what you're saying I think is right. If we tried to, let's just do this. Let's do a point velocity here, just out of curiosity. Velocity, curiosity. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, it's not happy. So there's definitely your problem. So that's what it's getting for the velocity if you try to calculate it post sim. So this is the problem of the changing point numbers, is that it doesn't know which point is which. You could introduce ID attributes, but boy, that would be hard to manage. Don't know how you would manage that, but there would be your kind of issue. If we look at it here, I mean, we're all good now, I think. Let's just see here. I think we should have point velocities showing up. No? Yes? Oh, there. There they are. And they're totally fine. You can sort of see them best right there. We're good. So, yeah, that is, that's doing some fun stuff. But yeah, that's the biggest thing, is like, if you're trying to do a retime, this won't work with that. So like, this would, like, if you had something that you wanted to like speed ramp or something like that, it would go all over the place if the time is off, because it's trying to keep track of the points from frame to frame. So that would be the only downside to something like this, although it's really interesting looking. So yeah, hard to say how to do it best, but all things to keep in consideration, and kind of positives and negatives to different methods. But yeah. Well, cool, everybody. I'm really excited for how this turned out. It looks really neat and did some cool stuff. I think it actually looks better than how I made it before. So thanks to everybody for kind of chipping in and making it better. Obviously, one person is only so good. So yeah, pretty fun. Pretty fun little example here. Yeah, let's make a nice... could you could resample each line with the same number of points. Yeah, I'm not sure if that would give you the same. I'm not sure if that would give you the same result you're looking for, because it's interesting. I'd be curious to see if that works or not. That would definitely be something to play around with. I have a feeling it would be really similar to just... Oh. Yeah. Yeah, the only... yeah, I see what you're saying at the end. Like here. Yep. I get you. In fact, I would probably... Oh, yeah. Could do that post sim. So I'm going to do a resample here. There we go. I was like, why is it doing that? There it is. Yeah, you could definitely do that. Maybe something like that. So I think the only problem here would be that you get some really nasty little kinks in it and stuff like that. Then you could, yeah. So what, you could, boy, that's a lot of back and forth, but you could do it. In fact, I'd probably do it before the post process just to make it even again. So that would set it back to being like an even number there. So now we have 45,300 here. I guess you could go higher. I guess there's no reason you couldn't do that. Something like that, maybe. And do like subdivisions like that. Yeah, now you have a solid non-changing point count, and that shouldn't have really introduced anything drastically different there. And there's a little bit there just from the subdivision. You don't have to do the subdivision. You could do it from straight edges, but the subdivision would smooth out any weird little kinks in it. But yeah, you could do that for sure. I mean, even 400 there, you're going to get a really, really dense, number. But then yeah, you could do any of that retiming type stuff. In fact, I bet you if we did the point velocity now, I bet you'd be fine. I bet you wouldn't even... Yep. Nice and stable. So yeah, I mean, really that is... Yeah, I see what you're saying, Mirko, for each loop. The only thing... yeah, I mean, for each loop, is that cleaner? I don't know. It would have to... if I was going to do it in a for each loop, I would do it in a compiled for each loop. so that it would be fast, because otherwise you get the overhead of all that calculation per loop. Not that we've ever gone, compiled for each loops are a bit, it's kind of a whole nother thing. But that could certainly be a way to do that or whatever. But yes, I'm sorry, just thinking of something. Cool. Yeah. So really it's all about having this point velocity stable, and point number stable. And then that way you can do things like calculating velocity, calculating, time offsets and all that kind of stuff with retiming. This already kind of has a little bit of the feel of like almost like a time ramp where it kind of blasts and slows down. So I don't know if this would really it would even really visually do much, but I think that's always something to keep in mind, is that if you can stabilize your point numbers or element, numbers, primitives, whatever, that when you're doing things like calculating velocities and that type of stuff, it can really help to make sure that all works properly. But cool. Yeah. Nice, everybody. Thank you all for kind of your feedback as well. Obviously there's a lot to think about when I'm playing around with this stuff, and it's always nice to hear how other people go about doing it, and like, the dumb ways that sometimes I'm doing things in certain spots. And I mean, you don't always have to, all these things are just the way that I'm thinking about doing it. Like here's my complicated way of doing things. But certainly, there's always more than one way to do everything. And we haven't touched that Pyro sim since we first started this either. So think about that too. Like that can give you so much different feel just from that one thing. We've only been tweaking the Vellum sim for like the last hour. So, I mean, if you went back in and added more noise moving around in different directions to your original Pyro simulation, that's going to change it as well and give you some different results. So, lots of stuff there. You could make it be a more linear explosion, even though that doesn't make sense in physics. I mean, we're just pushing around random threads, so you could have a linear explosion just moving out instead of like kind of puffing at first and then slowing. You could do a nice linear thing. So lots of stuff to play around with these types of things. And hopefully this just gets your mind thinking about other simulation types that you might be doing. I mean, working with Vellum, working with Pyro, things like that. So cool. Well, I'm getting kind of close to winding down for the evening. I think we've got things in a pretty cool spot. Yeah, you're very welcome. Thanks for being here. Yeah, no worries at all. Thanks all for chiming in. Remind me of Loki timelines. Oh, yeah, I haven't watched the new season of that yet. I've been meaning to, and I've just haven't done it yet. My wife hates waiting week to week. She's really spoiled with the binge thing from olden times. So we've been waiting to watch them all. We just haven't done it yet. So Zach, no problem. Yeah, thanks for being a part of it and the great questions. And Mirko, obviously, thanks for all your comments as well. It's always cool when somebody else has played around with the same kind of thing and has ideas and thoughts, because like I said, I'm one person. There's only so much happening in my brain, and it's nice to be able to be a part of it and get your guys' feedback. So yeah, thank you so much. So keep an eye on Twitter, whatever it is, X, whatever stupid thing it is now. Keep an eye on that stuff. I'll be posting there relatively soon about stream times and things like that. Today I did it way later than I meant to. I had some work stuff going on today, so I posted it super late. But next week I'm going to be trying to do a Mops Monday, so we'll play around with some more Mops stuff, and we'll then be doing a normal stream as well on Wednesday. So if you have any suggestions or thoughts or anything like that, please drop them into the topic suggestions. That's where this idea came from anyways. Who actually put this in there? Let me just double check. This was from Pascal. So thank you again, Pascal. I have a feeling I'm going to come back to this a few times because that's a that's a cool mix of different stuff that they make for X particles. So that's always a really fun little thing to take a look at. But yeah, the this file will be in that link for the Discord. So if you want to open it up, play around with this stuff, I will be uploading that when we're done with the stream. And thank you all for being here tonight. Super fun. Always great to have lots of chat going on and lots of people talking and questions and all that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate it. And I hope you all have a great evening. And yeah, see you next time, and we'll do some more fun Houdini stuff. See y'all next time. Bye, everybody.